Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of The Haunted Walk, offering thematic walking tours in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director of the company, and thank you so much for joining us for today's show. As you might imagine, many of us who work at The Haunted Walk are real history nerds. We love learning and sharing all the details, the gorier the better, about fascinating people, places, and events. To keep our walking tours from ballooning into all-day marches, we inevitably end up with compelling stories that we simply don't have time to tell or that don't quite fit on a ghost tour. Today, we're going to focus on one of those kind of stories. In Kingston, Ontario, the gruesomely botched double hanging of Daniel Mann and James Deacon has become something of a local legend. Today, we're going to journey back to that fateful day in 1870 to uncover what happened and the unique set of circumstances that led to these two men facing the executioner's rope. To give you a little hint of life and death in early Kingston, the episode will feature eyewitness accounts gathered from local archives and reenacted by a team of our fantastic tour guides from the Limestone City. Before we get to that, I did want to tell you a little bit about our 2016 Halloween season, which is going to run the entire month of October in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto. And quite frankly, is the biggest Halloween season we have ever had, launching several new products, unique experiences during that time, as well as many of our classic tours are going to be available. Turning first to Toronto, we are teaming up with Black Creek Pioneer Village, located in New York University, to present the Haunted Walk experience at Black Creek Pioneer Village. I find Pioneer Villages extremely frightening even during the day, so to have the opportunity to tell some ghost stories about these amazingly historic buildings, and stories from the area as well, under the cover of night, this is going to be an experience you don't want to miss. That's going to run on select Saturdays in the month of October. Running every night is another new tour that we're partnering to present with Muddy York Walking Tours. That's the Ghosts of the University of Toronto. I had the opportunity to walk the campus just a few weeks ago, shooting some promo material for the new tour, and it is just such a fascinating place, full of history, amazing architecture, and some incredible ghost stories, and that tour is going to be running every night throughout the month of October in Toronto. Our original Haunted Walk of Toronto is going to feature a visit inside Mackenzie House, perhaps the most haunted building in the entire city. So a great chance to hear some classic Toronto ghost stories and then visit one of the premier paranormal properties around. We'll also be offering our Ghosts and Spirits of the Distillery tour. The haunted cobblestone streets of the distillery are the perfect backdrop to hear some great ghost stories. Just a really picturesque spot, almost magical in the evenings. Another fantastic tour to check out in Toronto. Turning to Ottawa, we're very excited about our new Stranger Tales, a Haunted Walk city adventure. This might be one of the most ambitious things we have ever undertaken. It probably would not surprise you to hear that many of us at the Haunted Walk are big fans of Netflix's Stranger Things. We thought it would be fun to try to capture the creepy vibe, that 80s horror vibe mixed with a sense of paranormal adventure and something you could do with a group of people. So we've come up with Stranger Tales, which would be a self-directed experience where guests will have to solve clues, interact with characters, use online resources, and will eventually end up inside one of Ottawa's most haunted buildings. As far as I know, there is nothing like this happening, certainly in Ottawa, as far as I know in Canada, and we cannot wait to start these tours. Stranger Things will run on select evenings during the month of October. Another new product we're very excited about that we think is going to be ridiculous fun for some of the younger kids. So this is going to be an opportunity for families to come together to learn how to become Ghostbusters, and who knows, maybe things will go wrong and we'll have to do a little ghost busting of our own. It's going to be a fun, lighthearted adventure, and we're really looking forward to presenting that Saturdays and Sundays throughout the month of October. By popular demand, we are bringing back our Incident at the Bunker, a zombie adventure. This is our interactive experience partnering with the Deacon Bunker, Canada's Cold War Museum, where guests are led on an interactive adventure that puts you in the middle of your own zombie film, There'll be challenges to solve, some tongue-in-cheek zombie humor, and really a fun, creepy experience, 4 stories underground. Incident at the Bunker, a zombie adventure, will be running on October 29th, 30th, and November 5th. We do expect those tickets to sell out very quickly, so if you'd like to join us at the Bunker this October, be sure to get your tickets soon. With all of these new flashy tours, of course, we can't forget our classic tour, the original Haunted Walk of Ottawa, one of the longest running tours we've been doing, shares Ottawa's classic ghost stories. That's also going to be running every night throughout the month. In Kingston, our original Haunted Walk, the tour that started it all, will be running every night throughout the month of October. And if you've never been to Kingston or been on the tour there, I highly recommend you get that on your to-do list. We're also partnering with Fort Henry this October as part of their Fort Fright event. We'll be offering special Tales from the Tunnels tours, which will take guests underground to hear some of the fort's real-life ghost stories. There really is no time like the month of October to join us for a tour, so we look forward to seeing you out this year. For more information about our Halloween season, please visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com, and you can also look for us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat.
On December 14th, 1870, the bodies of 2 men hung side by side for 40 minutes, watched quietly by a few hundred onlookers braving the cold. Daniel Mann was bareheaded with simple jail clothing. James Deacon wore a black cap, grey trousers, and vest with a red checked woolen shirt. They were dropped about 6 feet from the hanging platform until they were dangling just above the ground, which was not far enough a fall to break their necks. Deacon died of strangulation quite quickly, but the same could not be said of his partner. Mann's noose got caught on his chin, and he died neither of a broken neck nor of loss of air. The rope did not cut off Mann's larynx, so he was able to utter guttural yet muted moans for the several minutes it took to die. Mann's neck suffered considerable dislocation and stretched quite far. Mann died of apoplexy from the burst blood vessels in his head. This was all because he was given too much rope. After the hangings, the 2 men were cut down and placed in rough pine coffins with the ropes still around their necks. Kingston is said to be the most haunted city in Canada, and there is no place more haunted in Kingston than that surrounding the Frontenac County Courthouse and Jail. Perhaps it is the spirits of men like Mann and Deacon and their victims that contribute to Kingston's reputation. In order to understand the gruesome deaths of these men, we first have to get a better sense of the crimes Mann and Deacon committed. Mann was one of the famed Malahide raiders. He was average height, 5'8", with sharp gray eyes and light brown hair. He was stout and very muscular. He was in his early 30s when, in 1864, he and several accomplices invaded the home of a man in Malahide. They bound his hands while they searched for money. Unbeknownst to Mann, a young boy was in the house at the time. He jumped out of the window to raise the alarm. The house was quickly surrounded by armed townsfolk, and Mann was able to escape after firing 3 shots as a distraction. But he was shortly captured thereafter in Detroit. He was sentenced to 14 years in Kingston Pen. Mann despised prison. He felt that time in prison, surrounded by evil characters, was devastating to his higher character and intellect. He thought long prison sentences were counter to reform, and that they would encourage persons to indulge vengeful thoughts towards society, which had shunned them and locked them away. After 5 years in the joint, he conceived of a plan to escape with his partner Smith, who was in prison for cattle stealing. The plan was to escape while working at the lime kiln watched by the guard Henry Trail. Their original plan was to inject him with morphine, but they quickly turned to more violent purposes, as described by John R. Dixon, who performed Trail's postmortem.
The prisoners were free to enter or exit the building at will. Mann snuck up behind Trail when he was not looking and struck him with a club, either an oaken handle of a pick or a sledge. It was 3 feet long and quite thick and heavy. Mann struck him twice in the head, killing him instantly. The first blow was in the back of the head, and the second on the forehead. There was very little blood resulting. One wound was over the left temple. It punctured through the flesh down to the bone, probably caused by falling on his face as a result of the blow. It was large, but it did not cause death. I also found several bones in the neck fractured, which would have required an incredibly violent blow from Mann. This blow was 3 inches long by 2 wide, and it was sufficient to cause instantaneous death by interrupting the connection between the spine and brain.
Mann and Smith were wearing street clothes, black suits that they had found in the fields weeks earlier, underneath their prison garb, and they took off their jumpers so as to be dressed normally. They tied his hands and feet behind his back and gagged the dead guard, thinking him alive, and took his rifle, revolver, watch, and coat. They then escaped into the woods. Their plan was to travel to Toronto, and from there to the United States. The Edgley brothers found the escapees shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I heard of the escape, and around 5 or 6 o'clock went down to Graham Lake with my brother, Jeremiah, and a few other farmers who lived nearby. We heard something, and found Mann in the lake covered up to his shoulders. He was wearing Trail's coat, a woolen shirt, dark trousers, and a fur hat. We chased him for a ways, and then captured him at gunpoint. After being captured, Mann asked if Trail was dead, and I responded, yeah, I've heard he is. Mann suspected that was the case. I arrested him on shore, and he gave up Smith's location, saying Smith had a revolver and he would use it. So we best be careful.
The trial was quick, with testimony from guards and prisoners alike. Mann was sentenced to death by hanging on December 14th, 1870. By contrast, James Deacon's trial was longer and messier.
James Deacon was a potato farmer who lived outside of the town with his wife and their 5-year-old son. His wife was Mary Jane Deacon, and he poisoned her at dinner on Monday, July 25th, 1870. A friend of the family, Almina Van Conant, who lived a few miles down the road, was at dinner that night. They were eating potatoes, bread, peas, tea, and huckleberries. Mary Jane complained of having a headache, and Deacon claimed to have some medicine. James Deacon put it in a teacup with some water and stirred with a spoon, handing the cup to her. He also, saying it would help his head as well, boasted of being able to take it dry and lifted some to his mouth. Mary Jane drank and then went to lay down. Later, she complained of feeling worse, with cramps on her arms and legs, and asked for some cold water to wash her face. She asked for a doctor, and he replied there was no use, as she was dying.
It was 15 or 20 minutes after the dose that the cramps appeared, and then 15 more minutes until she died. She was immediately so stiff that her body could not be straightened, and her hands remained clutched, her head cricked at a bizarre angle to the left. The right side of her body was distinctly a darker color, bordering on black. Deacon was accused of poisoning his wife, as the corpse did not appear ordinary. Mary Jane's body was incredibly decomposed only a few days after the death. It was swollen larger than when she was alive, with a bloated stomach. They had to push Mary Jane's stomach down just to fit the lid of the coffin over the body. Furthermore, her head was tilted to the left, and her legs were at such an angle that they couldn't fit stockings over the body. Her mouth and eyes were open. The doctor, John R. Smith, believed that this could have been a result of strychnine, which is a vegetable poison. There was blood clotted in the lung cavity. It also causes rigid legs, twisted elbows, eyes open and set upwards, and mouth clenched, all of which were observed in the corpse. A number of chemists, doctors, and pharmacists all agreed during the trial that it could have been strychnine, which caused Mary Jane's death. Furthermore, some details emerged afterwards that accused Deacon further.
A nearby shop owner said that Deacon had often asked him about poison and how to get it, to kill foxes that were killing his fowl. He spoke about life with Caroline, saying his wife wouldn't live long, though at the time, she was in splendid health. Mr. Shaw owned another shop nearby, and he testified that Deacon bought strychnine from him on the pretense of the same story of the foxes. As to Deacon's motives, the answer was of course love, or something. James Deacon was often observed spending time with Caroline Van Conet, a beautiful 18-year-old neighbor who was employed by their household during planting season in the fall. In May, a neighbor, Margaret Ward, saw James going out into the field with Caroline, the two pushing each other and falling on top of each other in the field. They came back in when it was dark. Another neighbor, Grace Hicks, had also observed their flirtatious behavior. Caroline worked at the Hickses' farm after she left the employ of the Deacons, and James Deacon often visited Caroline there. James Deacon was overheard telling Caroline that his wife was sick and wouldn't live long. After Mary James Deacon died, Grace Hicks asked Deacon if he had any poison in the house in case his wife ate it accidentally, and he said no. The next day, she confronted him, saying that he had bought strychnine at Shaw's. Deacon, flustered, responded that he had lost the poison on the way home. He said if poison was found in his wife's body by the doctor must have put it there himself. The final testimony during James Deacon's trial was from Caroline Van Conet herself, the accused seductress of James Deacon, and the reason why Deacon killed his wife.
I worked at the Deacons, but James never asked me to run away with him. He began acting strangely towards the end of planting season, saying he was speaking with a ghost. He had seen an omen that his wife was going to die, and he didn't want to tell his wife for fear of worrying her. Mary Jane was healthy, and the Deacons lived happily together, usually. Sometimes they would fight, but it would only ever be about their son. James never complained about foxes killing the chickens, and I didn't know he was going to buy poison to protect them. After he told me the ghost story of his wife being about to die, I resolved to leave the household for employment with the Hicks. On my way out, Deacon told me and my sister not to worry, for the ghost told me I was to remarry.
Deacon was sentenced to hang with Mann on December 14th, 1870. Both men turned heavily towards religion in their final days, and Mann even spent almost all his time in jail reading the Bible, which he marked when passages gave him great consolation. He intended to give that Bible to his mother. Mann claimed to never have intended to kill the penitentiary guard Trail, which he said was proved by his bonding and gagging the man after striking him. His newfound spirituality filled his final statement. Like the thief on the cross, I look on him who died for me, and begging forgiveness from whosoever I have offended. Deacon also turned to religion in his final days, claiming to have loved his wife, and even occasionally stating how excited he was to return to his life with her in heaven. His final words spoke heavily of forgiveness. God, for his sake, has forgiven my sins, and has adopted me into his family. I have also a blessed assurance that Christ is mine, because he has given to me his Holy Spirit. I have been sorry for my sins, and in bitterness of soul have confessed them before God, and have realized that he, if faithful and just to forgive my sins, and to cleanse me from all unrighteousness. No condemnation do I fear. Jesus and all in him is mine. I have no fear of death. The law is righteous, but Christ is mine. I look beyond this wicked, deceptive world to the everlasting hills from whence cometh all my strength. By grace I am saved. Through faith my burden is all gone, and I have peace, an abiding peace. I am ready. Come, Lord Jesus, come quickly.
A big thank you to our amazing team of tour guides in Kingston who put this episode together, Lewis for leading the way, Dwayne, Risha, Katiana, and Addie for lending their amazing voice talents. If you see them out on tour this October, be sure you let them know you heard them on the episode. The recording was done at CFRC 101.9 FM, and we would like to acknowledge the tremendous help we had from the good folks at the Kingston Public Library, Queen's University Archive, and Library and Archives Canada. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss when the new episodes come out, and if you are enjoying the episodes, we'd love to get a 5-star review from you. For the latest Haunted Walk news or for information about our Halloween season or other special events, be sure to visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. Until we meet again, sweet dreams.